Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here on Wednesday, and we're happy to be here on Life in the Law. I'm Jay Fidel, and I have with me our guest, Matt Matisse. Raise your hand if you're Matt Matisse. Good job. We have Keahe Davis.
Yes.
That's Keahe Davis. And we have Pam Martin. Let me take a moment. Good work. Now, Matt is the executive director of the King Kamehameha V Judiciary Museum Center, which is in the Supreme Court building, on the ground floor, very important. And Keahe is the education specialist in the King Kamehameha V Judiciary Center. And Pam Martin, a little different. She's the president of the Friends of the Judiciary History Center. Really important. And you guys are doing a great thing. I've been there. So I want to find out exactly how this all started, because it wasn't there when I was practicing years ago. Those rooms were courtrooms where I found the truth, or my opponent found the truth. But there were courtrooms. Those were the days not too long after statehood, when the judiciary building and everything was in there, including the circuit courts, everything. So something happened in the last 40 years. What happened to make this place into a museum?
I'll take that. So during the 70s, Iolani Hall needed to be renovated, and Chief Justice Richardson at the time was in charge of the project, and he put together a citizens advisory group, and they all came up with the idea to have a center to sort of bridge the lack of understanding, to make a connection between the Hawaiian laws of the past and contemporary law. So it's kind of their brainchild, and that group formed the Friends of the Judiciary History Center, which Pam is the president of today, and they got it all started.
That's why we're calling this show Hawaii's Unique Legal History. We were going to call it Our Past and Future, but it really seems more appropriate that we distinguish this museum and therefore this judiciary and therefore, the way we've handled the judiciary in this state over the years since, the Organic Act, all the way. We're different. We're very different, and this museum, I guess, am I right, intended to show you, to distinguish this. It's like Passover. Why is this museum different from all other museums? Why?
Well, because of its unique history, Hawaii is the only state to have emerged from a monarchy. So it has a lot of different historical aspects of how that came to be. And one of the goals that we're in the process of, which is why you wanted to talk about future, is that we're in the process of renovating some of the galleries to take on a more current approach to telling history and putting in some alternative perspectives and opinions, and not just one-sided historical presence that I believe is there now.
So you're carrying the arguments forward. It's not just how it's settled. It's you want to have the whole debate there. Am I right?
Exactly. That's exactly what we're looking for. And
I think that the idea is we want many voices to be heard. So you're not getting one point of view, but you allow a multitude of voices from both, say, lawyers back in the day or judges back in the day to, just people out on the street. So how the law really affected them, how it affected the society as a whole.
Okay. So now it sounds like from what you said, the Friends are the ones who began this, and from the Friends sprung the Judiciary History Center.
Friends began us. They got some grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities. The judiciary committed funds to the project. The Friends opened the museum in 1989, and the judiciary stepped in 90, and we're actually established by statute in 1990. So today we're an administrative program of the courts. So there's the courts and there's the admin programs. We're funded, our salaries are funded
Through the judiciary.
Through the judiciary. We have some program funds, but we rely on our nonprofit, the Friends, to kick it up a bit.
Yeah, so I can see
Right.
that the community would be
Yeah.
very interested in this. You probably have quite a few people who want to support it, including lawyers even.
Well, we like to think that lawyers are our top donation from, but yeah. So the Friends are really the nonprofit entity that allows us to take in things and make pay for things that a museum would necessarily need that perhaps a state entity couldn't actually do.
Okay, you guys are a state entity, and Pam is a, what, 501c3?
501c3.
So my
exactly.
contribution to you is deductible. But what about my can I make a contribution to you, directly to the museum, or do I gotta go through Pam?
Got to go through Pam.
Right.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yes.
government,
Yeah.
you can't, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And through the Friends, we're able to get grants for our education program.
Right.
So Kyahi runs a number of education programs that are funded through grants through
Are
the
you
Friends.
still recipients of grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities? Are they still involved?
Not right
That
now.
was
Yeah,
the
not right
original.
now.
That was the
That was the
original.
original,
Yeah.
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 So not right now. Most of the granted programs, the funded programs we've been doing for the last couple of years have been civic education programs. And so we're about to embark on a new campaign for museum renovation, but for the last decade, most of the Friends have supported us primarily through grants that are applied to our education programs.
So how did you get into this, man? I mean, are you a museum person? Are you trained in museums or in history or what?
I'm not. I grew up over here, and I went to college in LA and lived in LA during the 80s and moved back to get a graduate degree in Pacific Island Studies, and that said during that time I got a job at Iolani Palace, so that was my museum background.
Across the street?
Yeah, and I ran their education program, and through that experience I changed my degree to education and got my master's in teaching. I taught 2 semesters at Farrington High School, and then Lani Ma'a Lapilio, who's the first director of the center, hired me, and I've been there ever since. So I started in Kyahi Stead. I started as the education specialist.
I wanted to mention that my guess would be is that the museum started not too long after the Circuit Court building was finished. Because the Circuit Court building was finished in around 87, I want to say. And then the Circuit Courts could go there, and then you had your space.
Yeah.
How much space do you have?
Oh gosh, numbers.
Square footage, 3 galleries.
We have like a whole side of Iolani Hale
Yeah.
on the ground floor.
The diamond head wing of Iolani Hale on the ground floor is the Judiciary History Center.
Easily 2 of the courtrooms that you probably used to practice.
Yeah.
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 It actually does encompass the 2 of the courtrooms that were on.
Okay, that sounds like maybe 2,500 feet, maybe 3,000 feet.
Just about that, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
And actually, it was the legislative hall in the Kingdom period.
Taking me back.
Oh, you were around during the Kingdom period, huh?
I was, yeah. I came here in 65. That's 1965. So anyway, so now you had to figure out what to put in there. This is not easy. What did you? I mean, so you've had one great big iteration already, right? The museum was planned, it was decorated, all those special
Yeah.
museum type structures were put in there. A lot of photographs were found and printed up, and somebody
Yeah,
wrote
so
a lot
the-
of good text.
Yeah.
And so it became a museum. It's very, by the way, P.S. This is a very aesthetic museum. You go in there and you're really enveloped in a sense of Hawaiian aesthetic. And it's perfect in that building, because that building is a historic building anyway. It just fits really well.
Yeah.
So, but how do you figure out what to put in there? How do you write that up? What kind of research do you do?
Well, so we didn't have to figure out too much because Jane Silverman and Harry Ball and the original founders
In the late
did it all.
80s.
So yeah, so they put together the main gallery, the Monarchy Court Gallery, and the purpose of that gallery was to explain the change from Hawaiian law to Western law. And it's very interpretive, as you say. We don't have too much of a collection, so there's a lot of signage. In addition to that gallery, we're looking at landmark, like historic legal events in Hawaii's history. So after that gallery was created, we created the martial law during World War II exhibit.
Oh, that'd be very interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So we're kind of, I mean, Keahi alluded earlier to the content of the new exhibit, and the new exhibit there's so many more sources of information, and we're able to bring in a number of new voices, and so we're able to discuss other people's experiences and different narratives. We're able to explore a little bit more about the place itself, the land that the building is on is a real fascinating history. So
What was it before?
It was. Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
You know this
Well, before the Iolani Hale was there was a home on the property called Mililani House that was built for Victoria Kamamalu. And she actually originally lived, she was the daughter of Kekuanaoa and Kina'u. Kina'u was a daughter of Kamehameha the first. And so Victoria, Kekuanaoa, her father built a home on the grounds of what is now Iolani Palace for her. She lived there until Kamehameha III moved from Maui to this island. He then took up residence in that house, and she moved then to the property that was, or moved to the property where our building is today.
Right across the street.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, are there photos or drawings of these houses? And
Yeah.
do you have them in the museum?
Yeah, and particularly of the old Iolani Palace, as it looked there
See, that's
back then.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how did you get involved in this, Keahi? What did you study?
Yeah, it's interesting for me because I was born on the U.S. mainland, but moved here many years ago, and my undergrad was in European studies, and I went back to school here. Of course, I was fascinated with Hawaiian history, Hawaiian culture, language, and I was also volunteering at the palace for many years. I still do actually, and that was when I heard about a part-time position assisting the education specialist at the King Kamehameha V Judiciary History Center. Applied for that position and got that position, and worked that for a couple of years.
I got to say this. You ready? The rest was history.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
You can quote.
So here we are today. Yeah.
Okay. Look at it. On that one, I want to take a break. Okay, so we have here Matt Matisse. He's the executive director of the Judiciary History Center. We have Keahi Davis, education specialist at the center, and Pam Martin. She's the president of the Friends of the Judiciary Center, with which they could not actually exist. Without which they could not actually exist. We'll be right back after this break.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Hi, my name is Andrew Howard. I'm an astronomer at the Institute for Astronomy at the University of Hawaii up in Manoa. I'd like to tell you about the annual open house that we're having. This year it is on April 6th, 11 to 4 p.m. It's an all ages event, kids, grown-ups, even people in between, everyone is welcome. We have a lot of really fun activities. You get to meet astronomers, look at yourself in an infrared camera, play with Legos, make robots. look at videos. You can even make some of the kids like to make comets out of gravel and snow. Even adults like to do that too. You'll be able to look at the sun with a solar camera safely. It's really a great activity. We do this every year in April, and I hope to see you this year. Thanks.
Inspired by an ancient culture, classical Chinese dance, vigorous physicality, timeless stories, 5,000 years of Chinese music and dance, Shen Yun presents authentic Chinese culture. Coming to Blaisdell Concert Hall, May 8th and 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com or call 808-792-3919.
Hi, I'm your host on ThinkTech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, ThinkTech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here in front of the Judiciary Building where we should be. We're talking about our past, our future, and Hawaii's unique legal history right there in the King Kamehameha V Judiciary History Center. Our guests are Matt Matisse, he's the Executive Director, Kiahi Davis, he's the Education Specialist, and Pam Martin, she's the President of the Friends of the Judiciary History Center. So I'm going to carry on forward. I mean, talking about history in this unique state of ours. We are so unique, different than anywhere else in the world, and we should capture that somehow. Shouldn't let that, dissolve into history. So how would you break down the periods of history that are relevant to the development of the judiciary and that are covered in the museum? How would you break them down from the beginning, the earliest times you cover, until the most current times?
I think we would start with pre-contact, so that period of time there. So we're looking at, roughly maybe, 500, 600 AD going forward to contact, and then from contact on, we quickly get into the kingdom period within roughly, 30-year period of time from contact, and then the kingdom period up through the overthrow, and then overthrow through the provisional and republic governments, and then to the territorial period going forward.
Wow, that's really a study of law, isn't it?
Yes.
As the judiciary goes, it's interpreting the law. And so, what is the period that you find most interesting, the ones you focus on most?
I think one of the most interesting is the kingdom period, because that's when you're really starting to get these two different, maybe at times conflicting, but sometimes sort of like paralleling each other, views of law and how law affects a society. So you have this Hawaiian concept, and you have this Western, for the most part, American, Western European style law, and how the two of them kind of come together, and what we see developing is a more hybrid system that we have here in Hawaii.
So by the time of the takeover, it was already hybrid to some extent. And the whole culture was hybrid to some extent by that time.
Yeah.
And so you said mostly American law. I'm interested in that because I recall, there were a lot of people here from a lot of different places.
Yes.
who wanted to insinuate their systems into Hawaii.
Right.
And so they did have an effect. Who else aside from the U.S.?
You have many of the big powers back then. So of course you would have had Britain, France, Russia, all of these players on the world stage, particularly during the 1800s, were looking to somehow, at least attempt to have some sort of influence here in Hawaii.
Okay, so after the Organic Act and Hawaii became a territory, then you had the imposition of American law, but it wasn't exactly American law. It was It was, again, a modification of it, right? Because the law it didn't come in, you know, in one big swoop. There was an evolution. I guess evolution would be an important word here. It was not happening all in one day. It was evolving over decades.
I think, and Kari can speak much more politically about this than I, but I think we would steer away from words like imposition, where when you look at that transitional period, well, when you look at the transitional period, the monarchy period, and you look at the 50s, 60s, and 70s, 1850s, 60s, and 70s, you definitely see the ruling elite. You see the government use some of the Western forms of law to improve their law. And so you see when we talk about the hybridization of American law, you see the kingdom use law to their,
A couple of comments on that. Number one is when I started practicing, and it's still to some extent the case today, you'd go researching a given point, and you'd look and look and look, and you wouldn't find any Hawaii case on that. And for a long time, you wouldn't find any statute on that either. Because, at least at that point, this is not too long after statehood, we hadn't really filled out the blanks yet.
Right.
We were still operating on a system that had a lot of pukas in it, because we just hadn't had those cases. Those issues hadn't come up. And it took decades and decades to sort of catch up, not necessarily to the substantive law, but to answering the substantive questions that were coming up.
I think, so when we talk about these different time periods, when you look at the kingdom period in the 1850s and 60s, you get the Supreme Court stepping in, and you really see a clear role, the judiciary asserting itself, and this transition between use rights and private rights. There's a lot of ambiguity to begin with, and the courts sort of assert themselves and clarify things, and we start seeing that again in this century. Well, in the 1900s, with the Hawaiian Renaissance, the 60s and 70s and 80s, and you see Chief Justice Richardson's years as kind of the court stepping in again and asserting themselves. So there's a lot.
I also wonder, in the kingdom period, for example, there was a court, okay, and it was a court established at the behest of the king and could not have been otherwise.
Right.
And I wonder what the role, you alluded to this, what the role of that court was in that period. It would be entirely different than a role created under a state constitution, under the Organic Act, under the state constitution, under the federal constitution. So how much respect was the court system in Hawaii under the monarchy?
I think there's an immense amount of respect. I mean, you go back to the period, the Judiciary Act of 1847, which really formalizes this new judicial system on a Western model, but still very Hawaiian, going forward. And even going back slightly before that, 1839, a Bill of Rights, 1840, the Hawaii Constitution, the Kingdom Constitution of the Kingdom, the first Constitution.
Abe Lincoln was still practicing in Illinois at the time.
Yeah, and so going forward, there was this immense respect for the rule of law within the society. And you see that play out over the centuries.
That's been very interesting. Now, you cover this stuff in the museum. If I walk through the museum, I can walk through on a historical track, so to speak, and I can catch it from the early times to the later times.
Yeah,
right.
I can see the graphics and read the copy and all that. I did this once, but I forgot already what it's like. And it ends when? When does it end?
Well,
I think it doesn't really end. I mean, the thing is...
The last exhibit, what is that?
The last exhibit or last gallery within the building would be the the martial law gallery, which is just behind the territorial courtroom, the 1913 courtroom.
Okay.
But I think one of the more recent items were from the recent senator's death, right? Didn't we have
Yeah.
What was it, is his license?
Yes.
His practice
So,
law?
yeah.
His
You
license
know, it's
to
very
practice law
interesting,
was
yeah.
on
Oh,
display.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the other
Yeah.
thing about the History Center that I love is it's the programming that they have as
I
well.
want to talk about that.
Okay.
What kind of programming are you talking about now?
Well, programming that relates to
Yeah.
some of the exhibits
What
that
are
are
the programs?
current stuff. Recently, there was a wonderful program with Patsy Mink, and we also had a recent program on the Jewish legal lawyers and
Harriet Buslack.
yes.
Thing
We've
on
had
TV,
programs
yes.
in Harriet Buslack, yeah. Oh, wait,
And,
the Lawyers Without Rights. was
Right,
the
Lawyers
traveling
Without
exhibit.
Rights, that was the title. And the play, which was
Yeah.
about the overthrow of the Queen in the courtroom, in the actual 1913 courtroom. And the best part about the programs is they appeal to a wider audience than just lawyers. And it gives the
These are
concepts.
video programs?
No, live.
Live
With people
programs.
speaking and
Oh. They're
questions
different
being
formats.
answered. Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but most of the programming, like after hours.
So what is it like? I go in, I sit down, what happens?
Well, yeah, it depends on the type of program. She mentioned the one we did, My Polina, the Trial of the Queen, which is on the actually
You
the
reenact
Republic
the
government.
trial.
Yeah,
Right.
so we reenact the trial. So we have players who play out that whole trial. But then we have other discussions that will take place with scholars or maybe visiting judges or something like that. Yeah, and so there are a myriad of different types of
I think it
programs that we
speaks
do there.
to your point about where does the history end,
Right.
and the programs. I mean, the history doesn't end. So what we see
Oh,
with the
never.
new plans for renovation is we see, there will be no end point. Upstairs, Supreme Court decisions are made, and so history continues to
So
to
it's
make
so
itself.
interesting, the upstairs, they
Yeah.
make the decisions, and the bottom,
So we
you
see
interpret
that,
the
yeah,
decisions.
and that will be part of the new interpretation, is this continuation of history being made. But back to the programs, we sort of have a recipe where we'll take something like the Republic of Hawaii's Trial of the Queen. That's a living history program, and it's not just us, there's a lot of partners in the Hawaii Pono'i Coalition. But we'll take these historic events and we'll examine them, and then we'll establish some sort of, not establish, but we'll discuss the contemporary relevance of these historic things. So,
Really important.
yeah, so there's, and that I think is that's. to
So
me-
you have players, and they're in costume?
Well, for the living history programs, we
Yeah.
have players, yeah.
Yeah.
So for the Trial of the Queen, Victoria Newble wrote a living history program. She did it for the center back in 1995 to observe the 100-year centennial of the Republic's Trial of the Queen. So that program, that play, the transcript. So there's fictional characters to help the audience understand the transcript, but the actual testimony of the players in the trial are all right out of the transcript. She also did something on the annexation debate, so it's the same idea.
This is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating.
Right after we come back from this break, I'd like to ask you guys, every great museum, I'm thinking now of the Boston Museum, which is one of the biggest, best, most outreach museums. Boston Museum of Science is what it is. Outreach in the country, I'd like to ask who's coming and how you're reaching out and integrate. I mean, what's the word? You're interacting with them. Okay. So we have Matt Matisse, Kiahi Davis, and Pam Martin, all of the Judiciary Center. And we're talking about our past and our future here in Hawaii. Hawaii has a unique legal history. We'll be right back.
Hi, aloha. My name is Chris Leatham, and I host a show called The Economy and You. The show plays every Wednesday at noon. And on my show, I bring on guests who are interested or working in the technology space. And so I'd like you to come and watch the show and learn with me about all the sort of exciting things that we're doing in Hawaii to build and grow our economy ecosystem. So I'd like to say aloha, and I look forward to seeing you on the show. Thank you.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday.
Hi, my name is Seymour Kazimirski. I have a show called Seymour's World on ThinkTech Hawaii. Our show is about opening minds and facilitating conversations. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what we're going to be talking about. I have no idea who our guests are going to be, but I guarantee you we're going to have lots and lots of fun. Aloha from Seymour's World.
Okay, we're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidel, enjoying Life in the Law today with Matt Matisse, Keahi Davis, and Pam Martin. So you guys have described, and I've seen, I can attest to this, a really interesting museum that is somehow resonant with the building and with what's going on there. It's connected, and it's very aesthetic. So the question is, how do you bring people in? I mean, all museums have to have some degree of outreach. It's not like they will beat a path to your door. You have to beat a path to their door, at least in part. How do you do that?
Well, I think there's a bunch of different ways, and I know right off the bat that school kids are the #1 visitors that we have, and it's mostly because they can actually reenact certain court cases, and they have a hands-on experience with the history, which is a very positive experience for them. But Matt probably can speak more to some of the new courts in the community programs, where their Supreme Court is actually going out into the community.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate that we practically have a guaranteed audience because we have Kamehameha statue. We have public restrooms for the tourists from the...
And 10 million tourists.
We do, so we're very fortunate. We have those people that really the History Center is going to be their first take. It's going to be their first introduction to Hawaiian history. And so...
It's true. History
it really
general,
is.
It's not just the judiciary.
Yeah, so we've got we've got that audience. We also have a tried and true education program, and so really, to a large extent, our bread and butter for the past 2 decades has been our education programs and our school outreach. And Keahi can speak to that, but it's not just at the center, so it's not just kids coming to the center. We run the circuit court tours. We do a lot of teacher education programs where we'll reach the kids out in schools.
You go out to the schools?
We go out to the schools. Our programs we make them accessible to neighbor island teachers. Keahi can talk about the judiciary's role in the Courts in the Community program.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to know about that.
Yeah, so the Courts in the Community program is a great program that's been going on for a couple of years now under Chief Justice Mark Rectenwald. So what we're doing is we actually...
He said to access. This is part of his access thing.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
He sat in
it
this
is.
chair, same
All
chair.
right.
Okay. So what we're doing is we're taking the Supreme Court out into the various areas of Hawaii. So we have a curricular program that goes along with that, and it's targeted towards high school students in social studies. So what we do is when a case is chosen and a location is determined, say if it's going to be this semester, I should say, we're going to be on Kauai in April.
April 23rd.
Yes. So what we do is
April 23rd.
Yes.
Kauai.
Kauai, yes.
Okay, where in Kauai?
We're actually going to be at the Kauai Community College at the Performing Arts Center.
Okay.
We will actually have the oral argument there.
Oral argument?
Yes.
These kids have never seen an oral
Yes.
argument.
They've never
before.
seen
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what they actually have the opportunity to do is we recruit teachers to participate. Then we have a curricular program packet that we put together, and we work with the SPOCHE students, who those are law school students at the William S. Richardson School of Law.
So we should spell that out, though.
Yeah.
Students for Public Outreach and Civic Education.
Yeah. We call it SPOCHE.
They're a major partner.
Yeah, so we work together. What we do is initially, just a couple weeks ago, we went over to Kauai. We met with the teachers there and with volunteer attorneys, the local bar on Kauai. who will go into the classroom and work with the teachers to update or educate the
So they
kids.
can appreciate what's going to
Yeah.
happen when
So
it
they
happens.
will know what's going, the particulars of the
that's great.
case.
Yeah.
They'll argue
And then
the
they
case
will do a
themselves.
moot court activity on the case
Yeah.
in the classroom before they actually experience the oral
They
argument.
do their own moot court.
Right.
that
Yeah,
kids-
so they'll argue the actual case and then they'll observe it. And it really, the other, it really speaks to, it speaks to a lot of different things. It speaks to Hawaii's judiciary strong belief that the judiciary has a role in public education. And I've been lucky to work under Chief Justice Moon and now Chief Justice Rechtenwald. I mean, they're just running with this,
Isn't
this concept. It's
Chief
fascinating.
Justice Rechtenwald taking the court itself out on into
It's
the
amazing,
neighbor
yeah.
islands? That's
yeah.
a fabulous thing
It's
to
a
do.
really interesting time to work.
Imagine
for the
those kids,
judiciary.
their eyes are so wide. Well, these judges really doing a case.
And they are spot on for an entire hour of oral argument. The kids are spot on. You know, they're focused and they're watching it. But the other thing in the program, this particular program, and I think a lot of our programs speak to, is the partnership. So we work with the William S. Richardson School of Law students. They really provide the tutorial information for the case, but it's also the Hawaii State Bar Association who's providing bus transportation for kids to get to the schools, to the site, you know, where we're conducting the argument and paying for lunches. The countless hours of the attorneys volunteering to work with the kids in the
That's great.
classroom.
This is a great way to put in public service, really.
It's amazing.
You know, because you want, it's written on the courthouse of the Southern District of New York, or maybe it's the county courthouse of Manhattan, and it says, public confidence is the strongest pillar of justice, or words to that effect. And so if these kids see and engage in courtroom experiences at some really fundamental level, they're gonna like the courts. They're gonna believe in the
Very
courts,
strong.
and they're gonna have confidence in the government. The system's very.
That's what
important.
we're hoping, to increase their sense of ownership. And the other thing we see happening too is you also get a little more of the public attending the hearings, because they're, you know, now we're having oral argument on neighbor islands, so you get a little more, you know, you get people to the argument that couldn't make it to Honolulu, or might just not, you know, might not be aware of the arguments happening in the Supreme
We've got to
Court.
bring the islands together, and it sounds like the judiciary is doing that right now, bringing the islands together. So what about the Friends? How does the Friends participate in the outreach?
Well, our main job is to write the checks.
This is a very
I think
important
really,
job.
exactly. And so we have some fundraisers during the year, and we're actually going to have to be turning the volume up a little for this major renovation.
We can talk about that, but let me ask you this, Pam. I mean, how did you get involved in this? Have you got some, you know, long time experience in training and writing checks?
Oh, I wish. I think I got involved because I'm a museum junkie.
Okay.
And we used to work at the judiciary. And when I was working in the building, I found it. And it was a wonderful place.
It's a
and
great place to
I
discover.
love it.
Even if you never saw it before, never knew
Right.
anything about it. There it is. Wow,
Exactly.
you can walk right in.
I think it's wonderful. And I loved that there was something like that in the building. And I met Matt in the process of working there, and was very happy to participate when they asked to join the board. What, 6 years ago was that? Yeah.
Yeah,
Almost,
yeah,
almost,
it's
right.
coming up
So I'm
your
coming
sixth
up
year.
on the end.
Your second term.
Right. So I am going to, this is towards the end of my term, but we're looking forward to a continuation of a growing interest and donations.
Well, this is the right time, you know.
Right, exactly.
Because when you do a remodel of a museum, you're really going to another chapter. You're reinvigorating it somehow. You're adding new material, new thought. So important. So I'd like to know, this is our final subject here in the last few minutes, what do you have in mind for the remodel? What's it going to be? How are you going to do it?
Well, we don't have the actual concept yet, so we're working on the content.
Let's decide right here, right now.
Okay.
We do, I mean, the main thing is we really are incorporating a lot different voices and a lot more experiences, and we're trying to speak to I mean, everybody lived through this transitional period. Not everybody, but a lot of people, a lot of different groups, you know, participated and affected this transitional period. So we see a lot more of those voices coming to light in the new exhibit. We don't know if we're gonna like lay it out all linear fashion or if we're gonna focus on themes, and that's kind of something that will come up once we fully develop the narrative, which we're working on right now. We'll pull in the exhibit design firms to help us come up with, with a format to present the information.
We've had some people make presentations so that we can understand what their work has been like. And I think that the one word that it consisted in every single person's presentation was interactive. That's what they.
That's what museums are like now.
And that's what I think engages people.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to making a transition from, as you mentioned, where you have historical, where you're reading the labels and seeing the pictures, to something that's more where they participate and they select and they encourage. They're encouraged
Yeah,
to.
don't forget the Singapore History Museum with the TVs.
Right.
Well, this one's really good about talking about, Kiahi's really good about talking about different levels of interaction, but one of the things that, so we talked earlier about the groups that are coming right now, and we get these walk-in tourists, but a lot of them have, 5 to 10 minutes, and so we've got to get
You
them.
could get them.
A lot of non-English speaking people, so we've got to, we really got to.
Part of the experience, go to see the statue in the front.
Yeah,
Right back.
well, we got to amp up their experience.
Right.
What is
and
this
then-
now? What is this? You have one, I have one.
Right.
It's a very interesting book. Is this your pamphlet, your guide? Where does this fit in the experience?
That is our annual report required by our enabling legislation. It's available at our website,
Yes,
which is
jhchawaii.net.
jhchawaii.net, or just Google the Judiciary History Center. But that will be a review of last year's education programs, public programs, enabling legislation, nonprofit activity. That's what we did last year.
Well, it's alive and well. That's what I think. And museums have to be that. They have to evolve, they have to reinterpret, they have to reinvigorate themselves, and they have to outreach, they have to touch people, and it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing, and that's a wonderful thing for you guys, and for the judiciary. I'm sure that Justice Rectenwald really likes this. It has his name all over it somehow. So I have one more question. I can't let you go without asking, who exactly was Kamehameha V?
Okay. Kamehameha V, or Lota Kapuaiwa, he was the son of Kekuanaoa and Kina'u. He was the elder son, but his younger brother actually ascended to the throne before he did, Kamehameha IV. When Kamehameha IV died, Kamehameha V then became, or Lota Kapuaiwa became Kamehameha V. And the building is named in honor of him because he's pretty much responsible for the construction. So he actually wanted to build a new palace to replace that smaller house that was across the street on where Iolani Palace stands today. There were no trained architects in Hawaii at the time that could really take on the task. But he knew that there was an architectural society down in Australia, in Sydney, and some construction workers had been doing some of the work up here on places like Mauna Ala and the like. And so he got out the word that there was an international design competition for the building of a new Iolani Palace. The gentleman who won was an Australian architect named Thomas Rowe. His design was going to be used in building of the new Iolani Palace. But at that time, the government also wanted to build a government house or a capitol building. Financially, they couldn't take on both of those tasks at the same time. They wanted to prioritize, so they decided on the government house first. Only problem with that is that they didn't have a design for that building. So what they decided to do is borrow the design that had been submitted for the new Iolani Palace. And so with slight changes to that plan, that is what you see as our building today. And so Iolani Palace is actually a fourth revision of our building. And it was completed 8 years after our building was completed.
I'm glad I asked. The thing is, what you demonstrate, actually, is it's a living history.
Right.
And we know the details. We care about the details. We want to educate about the details. We want to bring our whole community into the details and perpetuate the unique quality we have in the judiciary and Hawaiian history. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.